Let me take you through the top 15 mythical UFC fighters. A mythical UFC fighter is a fighter who goes through a pivotal change in their career to become hard to beat, just like the final boss in a video game. Cody Garbrandt achieved mythical status in his title fight against Dominic Cruz. This guy was styling and wilding throughout the fight. Alex Pereira and Yuri Prochazka, on the other hand, are also mythical fighters by nature, because anything they do feels like characters in a video game. They just have this quirkiness and aura that man you can't just buy. For this list, I have compiled 15 of the ultimate UFC fighters to represent humanity in the Earthrealm and the Outworld. These are the best of the best when it comes to mythical status. Alright, enough of the yappity yapping, let's get into it. First on my list is Motivated Conor McGregor. Sincerely, you can say what you want about Conor McGregor, but he's responsible for UFC's popularity this decade. I would be firm to say this. He is the most popular UFC fighter of all time. So before all the coke rants and assault cases, Conor McGregor used to be a mystic mark. He said what he was going to do and delivered it with absolute fanfare. Motivated Conor McGregor knocked out Aldo in 13 seconds and destroyed Eddie Alvarez to become a double champ. Man, you just had to be there to see the fighting Irish embrace their superstar. But once he touched those boxing millions after fighting Floyd Mayweather, Motivated Conor McGregor was gone forever. The next person on the list is Horsemeat Alistair Overeem. Man, he was a scary-ass dude to face in the octagon and in Strikeforce. This dude used to throw haymakers over the cage. Damn. His mythical era started when he discovered his love for horse meat.
Did you eat horse meat too?
You don't like that?
You know, I don't think I've ever had
horse is very good
meat.
protein.
But come on, we all know that shit ain't horse meat. Once the juice kicked in, Overeem transformed from a normal heavyweight to a supersized cartoon villain. This man was smashing heads and taking names like Hulk. But impressively, this guy had an epic run in Strikeforce and Pride before destroying a few legends like Sergei Kharitonov and Vitor Belfort. Boy, thank God for Yosida. Standing in front of TRT Vitor Belfort during his epic run used to be one of the scariest sights for any fighter in his division. This dude was jacked to the grills, and hey, we all knew he was definitely onto some gear. Come on, you don't get jacked for just hitting the gym. But during his TRT era, Vitor knocked out Luke Rockhold, Dean Henderson, and Michael Bisping. And yeah, that's an insane middleweight resume. He once got popped for PEDs. Vitor Belfort lost his mythical aura and started losing up a bunch of high-profile fights before finally leaving the UFC. To the next man on the list is one-eyed Michael Bisping. Now, onto the one-eyed Michael Bisping. Guess what? Michael Bisping's eye issue started when he took a clean head kick from TRT Vitor Belfort, whose speed was so hot it could even melt the iceberg that struck the Titanic. And how about Michael Bisping? Did you know that this mad lad won the UFC belt with one eye? How the heck did he even pass the pre-fight test by the commission? Don't even ask me how, but what I know is that one-eyed Bisping managed to knock out Luke Rockhold on short notice to become a champion. What's the word again?
Conceive, believe, achieve. Shut the fuck up.
The next fighter is No Brawl Gaethje, or you could call him the head movement Gaethje. Justin Gaethje used to brawl like Michael Chandler. No head movement, just stand and bang. Justin was a perfect embodiment of the just bleed crowd pleaser. He put his brawling days behind him and went on to win the UFC gold with calculated violence. Who knew that all you needed to win the UFC title was a little bit of head movement? One time he decided to go back to the brawling Gaethje. He got flattened by Max Holloway at the UFC 300. At least he gave us an all-time moment, but at what cost? Taking you now to Sea Level Cain Velazquez. I'm telling you right now, Cain Velazquez at Sea Level was a force to be reckoned with in the heavyweight division. Unfortunately, Cain's biggest kryptonite was a kind of altitude or elevation. He was the king of his division with 4 fights win until he ran into Fabricio Werdum at 700 meters above sea level. Let's just say Cain Velazquez was out of his depth. During his fight with Fabricio Werdum, Cain lost the first battle against Mexico City's elevation by arriving late to camp for the UFC 188. This ultimately ended his reign and cost him his belt. I would go ahead to say this right now. Sea Level Cain in his prime would defeat any version of Francis Ngannou. Now moving on to the patient Ngannou. Just like Gaethje with no head movement, Francis Ngannou used to rush into fights like he had somewhere to be in like 15 minutes. It was like bim bam boom and the fight was over. But after getting his ass whooped by Stipe Miocic and crapping the bed against Derrick Lewis, Ngannou changed his whole fighting style. When the upgrade came, we got Patient Ngannou, who went on to defeat Stipe and become a world champion and the third African king in the UFC. Since then, the UFC has tried to erase his legacy, but the fans have embraced Ngannou as the people's champion, even during his time boxing in Saudi Arabia. Next on the list is No-Quit Oliveira. Back in the day, Charles do Bronx Oliveira had a reputation of being a quitter. Put enough pressure on him and he gets weakened in the octagon. To make matters worse, even commentators used to make fun of him.
Who's kind of known as a guy who fell apart.
A quitter a little bit.
Yeah.
To be fair, one of those accidents was because of a freak shoulder injury. Then a losing streak followed and was on the verge of losing his spot on the UFC roster. That's when he had his come to Jesus moment. When Charles sorted his mentality and stopped quitting on himself, he started a generational run that propelled him to the title. Now the champ has a name, and his name is Charles Oliveira. Another man on the list is Picogram Jon Jones. Before he started ducking Ngannou and Aspinall, Jones was close to Fedor in terms of legendary status. Casual UFC fans ranked him ahead of the Emperor, but with recent events and constant ducking,
all these things about pictograms and picograms. See that?
fans are slowly turning on him and looking at his resume with a side eye. But make no mistakes, Jon Jones is absolutely 100% when it comes to mixed martial arts. He dominated the light heavyweight division since he was 21. The only time he wasn't champion was when he was in court on the UFC jail for pissing hot. This guy's legacy will always have an asterisk because of many reasons. But once Picogram was involved, Jon Jones was unbeatable. Over to blonde Brunson. Derrick Brunson always had a goofy fighting style that reminded you of a Looney Tunes character. He always looked like he was out on his feet before stumbling his way into winning positions. But everything changed when he decided to change the color of his hair. During that stretch when Brunson dyed his hair blonde, he unlocked some mythical powers never seen before and went up to tear the division. Man, that blonde dye killed up some clumsy Derrick Brunson we never took seriously and gave us a fan favorite. And to be frank, we even saw a fun personality. Now over to Nosejob DuPlessis. The closest thing to DDP before his nose job was Derrick Brunson. The fight at UFC 285 was a unicorn event that ended with victory for DDP. Before the nose surgery, Derrick's DuPlessis once struggled with stamina, often flailing, stumbling and running out of breath in the later rounds of his fight. Later on, Joe Rogan spilled the tea that this mad South African has been fighting with a deviated septum.
That movement and that awkwardness makes him difficult to time. Deceptively technical.
Yeah.
Deceptively.
But after that nose job, DuPlessis gained the superior Kado Infinity Stones and has even managed to capture the belts in his division. Since then, he has defeated Israel Adesanya and Sean Strickland. Now to the undefeated, undisputed Chael Sonnen. Forget what your eyes are telling you. Chael Sonnen is still the undefeated, undisputed light heavyweight champion. Even when he got caught in that armbar, he only tapped because he thought the round was over. But seriously, Chael Sonnen is an entertaining version of Colby Covington and Sean Strickland. He talked the talk, walked the walk, and won a lot of fans on the way. How about this for badass? Chael went after all the Brazilian legends. He had beef with Vanderlei Silva, Tito Ortiz, the Nogueira brothers, and Anderson Silva. There's a reason the whole of Brazil wanted his head on a spike at some point. And no matter what you try to do, undefeated Chael Sonnen will not let you get close.
I can't let you get close.
Can you hear my
Moving on to the Bald Volkanovski. Come on, believe it or not, Alexander Volkanovski used to have a good hair on his head. And yes, he also used to play rugby before he became a mixed martial artist. His record as a man with hair was pretty much okay. But once he decided to go completely bald, there was no looking back. I'm absolutely convinced that Volkanovski with hair would have not survived the deepest guillotine in UFC history against Brian Ortega. But I guess that's one of the greatest what-ifs in sports history. I refuse to talk about those Islam and Topuria fights. That never happened as far as I'm concerned. Khabib with location. Khabib is the only UFC champion to retire with a flawless record. That makes sense considering the first English word he ever learned was smash.
Today, smash.
Whatever you do on this earth, don't send Khabib your location. If you're brave enough to do that, then get ready for a mob of Dagestaners, mopping up and slapping across your face. Trust me, Artem Lubov and Conor McGregor learned this the hard way. Their tiny beef somehow managed to spiral into the greatest fight in the history of UFC. As the only undefeated fighter in the UFC, all the people who answered the location from Khabib have been sent to the shadow realm. For me, Khabib's greatest gift to humanity was jumping out of the cage to go after Dillon Dennis. And now onto the balls hot Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis used to be a yo-yo journeyman type of fighter. No one really cared about his fights or his personality. But one day, the gods put a hot iron on his balls and he achieved mythical status.
Derrick, why'd you take your pants off?
My balls was hot.
This man actually defeated Curtis Blades, Alexander Volkov, and Francis Ngannou. Yeah, you heard that right. He defeated Francis Ngannou. Though not a lot of fighting happened on that day. Whatever the Black Beast lacked in skill, he made up for sheer brute power and charisma on the mic. And how about that time he called out Ronda Rousey during his post-fight interview?
What Ronda Rousey fine ass?
So which mythical UFC fighter do you like the most? Let me know in the comments. My name is Emmanuel from GCR. Thanks for watching.